what I think is that Bitcoin represents hope to billions and billions of people around the world. And the right to property is a basic human right. And if we take away a bank of economic energy from humanity, it's the same as sentencing them to slow starvation. So obviously I'm a big believer that Bitcoin, is critical to spreading human rights around the world. And what you see right now is that in countries where the currency is collapsing, the banking system doesn't work, then people are turning to Bitcoin and they're using their mobile phones to hold a crypto asset in order to protect themselves. If I look at all the utterances, I think Mark Carney has said on the record, it's a crypto asset. Jerome Powell has said on the record, it's like digital gold, it's like an asset.
Yeah, he sees it as a store of value.
A store of value. The
Right.
deputy governor of the Chinese central bank has said it's an asset. Christine Lagarde of the EU central bank has said, yeah, it's an asset. I mean, they might say it's a speculative asset, but currency is a medium of exchange and it's the province of governments. And in order to be a currency, you have to be deemed non-taxable upon transfer. And Bitcoin is not. Bitcoin is deemed property by the IRS, and most countries deem it as property, which makes it an asset, not a currency. So I think that the way the world is evolving, we're going to see 5 billion or more people with mobile phones and mobile wallets. And in that wallet is going to be a selection of currencies and a selection of assets. And the strongest currency is the dollar. And the strongest asset is Bitcoin. And in countries like Venezuela, they're going to lose their currency privileges, and their citizens are going to default to the dollar as a medium of exchange. But the only way that you can deploy dollars as a medium of exchange to billions of people across hundreds of countries and tens of thousands of banking systems or application networks is if you have a global settlement network, which is a shared monetary protocol, and that is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is the global monetary network that allows everybody on Earth to store their economic energy over long periods of time. And so I see an emerging economy with a digital asset called Bitcoin and a digital currency, likely the dollar, but if not the dollar, perhaps the renminbi, right? And if not the Chinese currency, then perhaps the euro. At the end of the day, the winner is going to be the strongest currency, which will come from the strongest country and the strongest economic network, which will be the US. And once you understand it that way, then you're not so afraid anymore, because you understand the regulatory framework that comes to Bitcoin is the same regulatory framework that comes to gold, silver, and S&P 500 indexes. It's just know your customer, anti-money laundering regulations. And if you're afraid to buy Bitcoin because you're afraid of regulation, you shouldn't be, because if it is regulated pari passu or at parity with these other assets, it will create an avalanche of institutional money flow into the asset class. I mean, if you were to say to me, I can pay you in Bitcoin, it doesn't make a lot of sense because the transactions are slow. But if I had highly appreciated Bitcoin, I would be accelerating a short or long-term capital gains bill in order to pay you. And so the only way that I would pay you in Bitcoin would be I would take $100, I would buy Bitcoin, and then 1 minute later I would transfer the Bitcoin to you so that the basis in the Bitcoin is equal at the time I acquired it and the time that I transferred it. So I think that this is a vestige from the first decade when there were a lot of retail users of Bitcoin and before they understood the law. But the law has been very clear in the US since 2014. And any institution, right, any high net worth individual, any corporation, any institutional investor understands that you acquire this stuff. you're going to hold it. Now, I'll make one more point. It doesn't make any sense to pay for anything in Bitcoin for two reasons. The first reason is because it's a taxable event. Mm-hmm. And you're a fool to accelerate taxes on your own person by a decade. The second reason it doesn't make sense is because it's a long duration asset that's deflationary, which means it's likely to go up in value. It's been going up 150 to 200% a year every year for a decade. So why would you pay $1 million in Bitcoin to buy something which is going to depreciate in value when the $1 million in Bitcoin may very well double 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more times? Bitcoin's the dominant crypto asset. Ethereum is the dominant crypto application. You can divide the entire universe into some segments, and Ethereum is competing with Binance Smart Chain and Solana. That's very competitive. They're very complicated. They're very centralized, much more centralized than Bitcoin. They have to be centralized because they need to run on proof of stake networks because they need the speed. Mm-hmm. So proof of stake itself is orders of magnitude more centralized than proof of work because you don't have these sprawling networks of miners with their ASICs everywhere on Earth sucking up energy to keep any one person from getting control of the network. So Bitcoin is like the dominant winner of sound money. These other things, they're just very risky. They could crash, one could win, one could lose. Ethereum doesn't even run on proof of stake yet. So, basically you don't know when they turn on proof of stake, the entire thing's not going to go in some bizarre way, right? What'll happen? You don't know. Like, there's nothing you can buy that's better. So you're selling the winner to buy the loser. If let me make it simpler. If you owned a company in Venezuela, and the company sold anything, and you got paid in bolivars, mm-hmm. and you decided that, and you knew that the bolivar is going to keep falling at like 20, 30% a year, and you roll the clock back 20 years. If you were unwise, you just keep working and eventually your assets go to zero. And if you were smart, you would convert your cash flows into US dollars and put it in a bank in New York City. Now, when would you exit from the dollars in New York City and trade back into the bolivars in Venezuela? It's only going to get more valuable, right? You can make more apartments in New York City. You can print more US dollars. You can create more houses on the beach. You can create more artwork, Give me something which is scarcer than pure monetary energy on the dominant global digital monetary network.